Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Current Status. We have an exciting guest this evening. Um, instead of right, there's a running joke, Gabe. We always said special, so now I'm changing it up. It's exciting. So you're our exciting guest, and my name is Theresa Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at 24/7 IT Connect.
And I'm Phoummala Schmitt. You can find me on Twitter as at Exchange Goddess.
Awesome.
So, yeah, so as I mentioned, we have a very exciting guest. We have
I
Gabe
don't know how
Knuth.
excited I'm going to be. It's 9:22 at night here. I think special is probably a better term for me today, but I'll try to be exciting.
You sound more excited than me because I'm like, I have to admit, I'm almost falling asleep.
Well, nobody told me I could have wine.
What? Obviously, you're not a
Ah.
fan. You're not a fan of us then if you do not know that you can have wine. You can have bourbon, you can have gin, you can have beer, you can even have Jose or
Yeah.
vodka.
You don't want me to do that.
You can have anything you want here.
Uh-huh.
It is a judgment-free zone as long as you are fully clothed. That's all I ask.
Covered.
Yes.
It's cold, so yeah, I'm wearing clothes today.
Which is fair. So, Gabe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am I've been in the desktop virtualization space now for about my whole career. I mean, I started in 1997, somewhere in there, doing like break fix work, and for a value-added reseller in town. And we had a server like in our little desktop room, and I was curious how that worked. And so I would smuggle home. It was a NetWare server, so I'd smuggle home NLM files on floppy disks, like one a day, until I had enough to make a server. And finally, I learned enough about that to move over to the server side of this consulting company. And that's the day I moved over there is the day I met Brian Madden. And Brian said, "Hey, I'm going to go out to this hospital. Do you want to do? We're going to do this thing called MetaFrame. It's a pilot. Do you want to come along?" And I didn't know any of those words that he said except for hospital. And so I said, "Yeah, why not?" And I tagged along. And so the day I got out of desktop support, I got pulled right back into desktop support. And that was in 1999. That was NT4 Terminal Server Edition with MetaFrame 1.0. And so really, I haven't looked back. I took a couple of years off and was just like an Active Directory admin, and I sure wish I knew Carl Webster back then. But for the most part, my entire career has been spent doing desktops and desktop virtualization. So today I write for BrianMadden.com. We travel around, we speak at events. We have our own podcast. We have a couple of conferences that we do each year called Bri Forum, and that's my life.
Awesome. So our topic this evening is application refactoring, which actually is it's pretty interesting because we, in this mobile workforce we're in, we're trying to always figure out how to take the legacy apps and turn them into something that can be used when we're out on the road, and that can be a big challenge. So what are your thoughts on what businesses can do to enable their mobile workforce with these older applications?
Well, so I feel like it's a larger discussion really about dealing with those legacy apps, like you were saying, but we've been dealing with legacy apps for a long time. I mean, that's what we started using desktop virtualization for, was taking these older applications and being able to deliver them to non-standard user environments or use cases. And so we were able to take maybe 3-tier apps and we could deploy them to areas that we weren't able to deploy them to before. And so we've been using desktop virtualization to do something like this for a long time. The problem is that when the mobile devices started to become prevalent, we thought that we could just keep deploying Windows and Windows applications the same way. And so we would, it's the very first day that there was a Citrix client for my iPhone, I got it and I was using it and showing all my friends and thinking what a super cool badass I was. And really that experience sucked. And it turned out it was just a really cool party trick. And so we started to just think about different ways that we could handle things. And for the longest time, nothing came about. And so the best thing that we could do for a mobile device is still just throw a Windows app at it and let all of our users pinch zoom their way to using an app. And we all know how terrible that is. So over time, Citrix started to do some work in this space. If you remember, Project Golden Gate was their ability to turn Outlook into to refactor, transform Outlook from a XenApp session to a mobile interface. And so it was Outlook running in the data center, but the interface that the end user was seeing was tweaked and accessible from the mobile device, or usable from a mobile device. They also had something called the Mobility SDK for XenApp, and that was excellent. It allowed you to take an application that you own the source code for and tweak it so that it had a mobile interface, but you had to have the source code for it. So it wouldn't work with some of those really troublesome old legacy apps. Oh, I'm sorry, I heard a ding and it just said you adjusted my audio level. Everything's okay? So anyway, so Citrix has this mobility SDK for XenApp that requires you to have access to the source code, and there's a lot of people that I talk to at different shows and stuff that say, "Oh man, we have the only way that we replicate our terminal servers these days is by cloning, because we don't even have access to the original install bits, let alone source code for applications." So it only worked for a very small number of users. And lately, in the last couple of years, there's been a few companies that have come out with products that let you actually take off-the-shelf software and relay it out for a mobile device. And so that means that we can take those Windows apps now and deliver them via desktop virtualization or something like that to a mobile device, but we can also change the way the application looks and the way that we interact with that application to make it more native, like a native interface for whichever device you're on. And that, to me, is one of the more exciting things going on today with desktop virt. Have you had any experience with them or talked to anybody?
So for me, when I was at BriForum this year in Denver, I think really the first time I was exposed to one of the products that could do this was there. And I sat in, you guys had a series of, I think there were like 10 or 15-minute sessions, like vendor sessions, and one of the companies that was doing this, actually I think ended up being like Best of Synergy or one of the, maybe even BriForum. Yeah, I was trying to leave the vendor names out of it, but yeah,
okay.
I was blown away. Yeah, it's okay. I was absolutely blown away with what could be done. The other thing I find really interesting is with these applications, you know, I was doing some reading about it, how you might not actually even deploy all the features of the app. You might limit what you deploy.
Yeah, I mean,
have you seen a lot with that?
So I've yet to encounter it in the wild, but I've seen these demos and I've seen the sessions that they give at BriForum, and there's been a few different companies that have been at BriForum over the years, and especially at the bigger conferences like Synergy, where they do demo sessions. And one year there was a company that did a full 60-minute demonstration where they took an application and transformed it. That was their session, like them transforming an application. And the way they do it is they've got it to the point where there's a designer where you have the Windows application up on one half of the screen, and on the other half of the screen is what you want your mobile app to look like. And so you click on the element of the window in the Windows app, and then these designers know, okay, this is a drop-down box, and so you say, move this drop-down box into the mobile interface, but now since it's an iPhone, change it to a rollover or whatever they call those. It looks like a barrel rolling around, and so you can relay things out, change the size, change the font, and they'll do it with. I think you'll know what I'm talking about here as I describe it. Programmers are not great UI developers, right? Programmers are excellent at making an application, but when a programmer is the one that makes a UI, there's usually a whole bunch of stuff just crapped out onto the screen, and it makes sense to them, but not necessarily to the end user. And there's a lot of applications that are like that. Imagine like a warehousing system or a parts ordering system or things like that, where you can probably do 4 or 5 different things within that one window. But when we're talking about mobile devices, we can't cram all that stuff into one screen. So they'll
What do you mean we can't? I've seen some crazy apps out there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, real estate.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, that's a great example. Stock trading is another one.
Yeah.
And so imagine now, so there's 5 different areas on the screen that do different things. You can actually, with these app refactoring tools, you can break each one of those out into separate workflows or separate tabs even, so that, yeah, like you say, Theresa, you're not putting the entire application on the mobile device. You're just putting what the users need to do when they're traveling, when they're on the road. So maybe there's
Yeah.
3/4 of the stuff that this app doesn't actually need to be there when the user's in their car on their way to another call. They just need to be able to like submit the notes from a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, that's a nice business advantage too, to be able to take that and just deploy what they need.
For sure.
Happier user.
Yeah. The way these guys work is a little bit different. I mean, there's one vendor kind of inserts themselves in between the Windows or the application layer and the Windows OS layer, and they actually watch what the application is asking Windows to do and what Windows is telling the application to do, and that's where they get their information. Another one just uses the RDP protocol. Microsoft opened up the RDP protocol spec, I don't know, it feels like it was recently, but it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And they can actually see what the RDP protocol is telling the client to draw on the screen, and they say, okay, we're going to intercept that and make it draw something else. But so there's 2 companies that do the Windows applications, but then there's another couple of companies that do web apps, because you think, all right, I got this web app, it should just work on a phone. But we're talking about, in this case, we're talking about web apps that were made for use on a desktop, and so they have the same problems as those Windows apps do, where there's just so much going on the screen and not a single bit of it is optimized for a mobile use case. And that one, you can pretty easily visualize that, right? Like, you make a web page that draws these different elements on the screen, and they just break them up in different ways with like a HTML rewriter, basically. So even the Salesforce, I've heard from these companies, not from any customers, that the Salesforce mobile app, like the native app for your phone, stinks, and so they'd prefer to use a refactored web interface than to actually use the native mobile app on the phone. So there's uses for newer apps as well, but those legacy apps, I really want to come across people in the wild that are using this, and so hopefully somebody's listened to this thing and has been using it in their organization for a while. I'd love to hear from them and see how it goes.
Well, we've talked about legacy apps quite a bit on this show. I think, recently.
Yeah, I think we've that horse pretty dead.
Well, they're such a thorn in your side. I mean, you keep things around for, historical purposes, and there may be things that our users are trying to get at. I find it interesting that we could turn it into something mobile, especially if it's historical and they do need to use it.
When a lot of this stuff.
We have apps that are from 2002. Okay.
That's a healthcare thing.
It is. Nobody wants to get rid of anything. We need to keep it just in case. I'm like, really? Come on, people. Come on. It's 2015. Let's get with the times here.
But I also think in healthcare there's still running apps, unfortunately. There are old apps in healthcare, though, because when these businesses were starting out, like, you had garage vendors selling apps to hospitals that stopped developing the app partway through.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still somehow dependent on it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And this is the kind of thing, they don't have access to the source code. Sometimes they don't even have access to the install stuff. And trying to keep these things working and running is challenging, especially with these new form factors for devices that we have today that we didn't have to worry about up until, I don't know, it's easy to say 2007 when the iPhone came out, but it was probably 2010 really when the world started, when IT started caring about what devices that people were using. The problem, the different angle here, though, is that you can actually do this with those old applications, because even though you don't have any access to the source or the install bits, you can still refactor these things. That part's amazing. And if you think, in 1999, I think, it might have been 2000, at Citrix Synergy, or Citrix iForm, Citrix had a product called Vertigo that they were trying to get people to develop applications for. And if you develop the best Project Vertigo app, you would win a Dodge Viper. And I remember as this like saucer-eyed kid walking into my first big conference, not even old enough to drink, but there's people in the expo hall floor handing me beers. That like this Viper was just the most badass thing I've ever seen. And so, we're all hopped up. I want to do a Vertigo app. The whole point of Vertigo at the time was because people had different PDAs. That some ran Windows CE, some ran Palm OS. I'm sure there was some Nokia or Sony or whatever Ericsson, OS at the time.
Those big waffles.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There were probably Newtons still in the wild then. I don't know.
This is the second time I've heard Palm OS this week.
Oh wow.
I know. I'm like, really? I haven't heard of them since like they had disappeared. Now twice in 1 week. Anyway, sorry.
I'm gonna say I am proud to say I never owned one of those, but I did own an HP Pocket PC.
Oh my gosh, I forgot all about those. Right, and the compact iPads and all of those things.
They rocked. I mean, they were like badass.
The HP Jornada.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a Jornada too. Yeah.
So all those devices are running around.
Good times, man. Good times.
So Vertigo was made so that you could develop an application one time and then have different interfaces for different operating systems on it. I think it was JavaScript or something like that. But even back then, Citrix was sort of paying attention to it. But basically every app sucked on those devices. I mean, we used them for a calendar and maybe some notes. That's about it, if I recall. I had a handspring. Remember that, like the guys that developed the Palm Pilot left the handspring.
Yes.
Trio.
Yep, I was supporting those things. Yeah, the handspring.
I remember I supported like 3 or 4 of them, and I basically convinced them that they were from the devil and they need to get rid of them.
You would have hated me then, because I had an OmniSky modem for mine, which connected to I don't even know. It was like analog data. I don't know what it was. It was really crappy. I forget what the network was called.
I would have a voodoo doll for you at my desk. That was like pins.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Like IMAP or POP3 for your Exchange server, so I can get my email in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, I think that
like you don't get in the bathroom now.
Yeah. Every bad financial transaction I've ever made since then, it gets compared to buying that $300 or $400 modem and paying $50 a month to use it. Like that was just the worst decision I ever made.
We've all made bad decisions, okay?
Absolutely.
Yep. I can always say I've spent more on less and mean it, thanks to the OmniSky handspring company. But so even back then, even 15, 16 years ago, Citrix was thinking of different ways to do this sort of a thing, and so I think that it's really cool to see this kind of stuff happening now. What I'm amazed at is that none of the vendors have acquired one of these app refactoring companies yet. I think
really?
I don't know that there's even been any interest.
You would think like Microsoft or even VMware would kind of jump onto that.
Would be interesting.
Yeah, because you can really, I don't know, you could really build upon that, especially with like Horizon View and their app volumes and all that cool stuff we want to do with AirWatch, and even Microsoft.
Well,
I don't know. That's just me thinking.
Yeah, and you would think that. I think Citrix is well, in one way they're especially surprising, in the other way they've got their hands tied right now, and so they're busy, doing other things. I'm just surprised that they haven't bought anybody either. And you mentioned AirWatch, and I think it does. I think now that both Citrix and VMware have these established MDM platforms or enterprise mobility, I guess I should call it. It's more than just MDM. That they could even better leverage some sort of technology like this. And so I expect that in the next year we'll see some activity there, but...
I'm quoting you.
Oh, I've said it out loud.
You said it here first. Right.
No, I wrote an article 6 months ago that said...
Oh, John, just say that. Come on.
It was like a
he said it here the second time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Why do you always have to burst my bubble? My gosh.
Because I have to write one article a week.
I'm never going to have to... you're never coming back on here again. You're supposed to make me feel good about myself. Okay?
When you have to write 2 articles a week, though, you kind of sit there and you're like, all right, what am I going to write about? Fantasy football draft for app refactoring.
You can, what?
You should.
How about this? You write about shoes. Write about the best shoes to wear to work. There you go.
But I rarely have shoes on at work. I work from home. In fact, like I said, my son is sleeping 10 feet to the other side of this wall. I might have to get up and take care of him at some point.
He can join the show too. Actually, my daughter wanted to join the show, and I said, actually, that might be a pretty interesting show if you were on taking my place.
Oh, that's funny. My son wanted to be here too.
Oh yeah.
She'd ask you questions like, "Why does my Minecraft app doesn't work sometimes?"
Oh man. My son's fairly resourceful. He hasn't come to me too many times with tech problems, but I'm sure someday he will. So, and I'll just like hand him the Windows 10 resource kit book and like, here, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, there you go.
Mommy, awesome. I can't make this video on my iPad. Fix the internet.
Yeah, where's Curious George?
That's awesome.
Yeah, they call me more to fix the Apple TV than anything.
Do they? So, just kind of closing the loop then on app refactoring. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, as you were mentioning for the second time, that this will be the next thing in the next year or so. I agree. I think everything's mobile, and users want to just be able to do their jobs no matter where they are.
Well, and so if you could
any app, any device, it should be a seamless experience for the user. It should be effortless, easy, no thinking. I mean, that's the way I want to work. I don't have to think about it. I want to be able just to tap it and go, okay, it's done.
Well, and so there's two more things about that. So one, these legacy apps, like the world's moving to web or mobile apps or whatever, that's fine. But if you could have moved it, you would have done it by now. So it's time to find a different way, and this enables you to do something like that. But the other thing is that every one of the companies that's doing it is not doing it with the intent that IT is going to deploy this thing. They're doing it with the intent, they're not doing it with the intent that IT is going to be designing the interfaces and the workflow. They're doing they're making their products so that the application owners, like out on the business side, are the ones that are sitting there with the designer mapping different workflows and different tabs and things like that together. And so it's not only possible to do, it's actually really easy to do. Like easy enough that, like I said, people on the business side, not in IT, could be doing this kind of work. And that part too, I think, is critical because it makes it just easier to deploy.
Well, regardless of the size of the organization, then even the small business can consider it as an option.
Sure, but even just the accounting department at a company can say, you know what, we've got this accounting app, and so IT can buy it. IT might have to implement the infrastructure to pull that off or install the agent on their terminal server, or whatever the case may be. But they can hand off the actual design process to the business side and let the team lead or whatever handle all of that. And if they
do you really want the business to do that though? I mean, sorry to interrupt. Do you want the business to do that?
I would say the business knows the workflows better than IT does.
True, they do, but wouldn't it be a better experience if it was more collaborative with an IT resource? Because sometimes the business they want everything, and sometimes that's not possible, and they may do things and end up breaking. Certain functionality. So, wouldn't you say it might be better to have an IT resource available so they can make recommendations based on the requirements the business has, and and they could say, okay, here are some suggestions because you want to do X, Y, Z. We can provide solutions for you.
I don't
rather than going, here's a business, do whatever you want. I really don't give a shit. And then 5 days later, they turn around and go, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? This sucks. Return it. Because I've seen that happen.
You're right, and I don't think it's going to be a completely hands-off process. But the idea is that they're creating these design studio things to create the refactored apps with that sort of simplicity in mind. And so, the IT might have to go, hey, you might want to think about not doing so much on one screen or something like that. But this way, you can get the proper workflow without doing too much or too little. And like I said, IT can hold hands, but in general, the entire process is designed to be pretty easy to do. So,
when you were mentioning the business being able to do the work, it brought back terrible memories of SharePoint deployments in the early days when when the wild, wild west occurred and hard lessons were learned.
Man.
Who hasn't deployed SharePoint in that fashion? I've deployed a couple of SharePoint farms. I got a text from a former boss who, to make a long story short, he now works at a place I used to work, and that was like 7-8 years ago. And he sent me a text, and he goes, "I just looked at this SharePoint site, and it has your name everywhere." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I forgot about that."
It's funny how old stuff comes back to haunt you.
He's like, "I looked at this name. I'm like, I know this person. She used to work for me at a different company."
That's funny.
I have people who that's funny. Time to time from work. So I live in Omaha, Nebraska now. I grew up in Cleveland.
I'm sorry.
That's I can look out my front door and see a cornfield, and my back door I can see like downtown and the skyscraper.
It's like where I live. I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So yeah, we're like neighbors, you know.
Well, so back in Cleveland, I did some work where I had to deploy Lotus Notes via MetaFrame.
Did you really just say Lotus Notes MetaFrame in the same sentence?
I did, and so the crazy
oh God,
like the 1900s that I did this work, and it was probably 2008 where somebody sent me an email and said, "Hey, I remember you from doing this kind of work. Do you have any idea? Do you remember how you did this? Because we're still having problems with it today." I'm like, "Holy crap, guy! It has been 9 years. It is time to move off." But I can't. It seems like no matter where I turn, Lotus Notes is still there. The last place I worked, they had 2 different IT departments. One of the IT departments ran GroupWise. One of them ran Exchange. They moved both of those. They migrated to Lotus Notes, and they did this in 2007. IBM came in and had to invent a process because they'd never had to do that before.
Oh God, that's awful.
Lotus Notes today. This podcast is not sponsored by IBM, is it?
No, it's no.
No.
I'm actually on the mission. We're sort of, yeah. Notes is I'm not a big fan, and it's a little hidden secret that I'm actually responsible. Lotus Notes is part of my responsibilities. I'm the technical team lead for messaging and groupware.
Because that's the word people use today.
Yeah, we just call it messaging.
Also multimedia and e-mail.
Yeah, multimedia is in there too, because Polycom, Real Presence, video bridging, and Skype, that all falls under my umbrella of, wing of responsibilities that can stomp my feet around and have temper tantrums when somebody doesn't do something that I want them to do.
Like, get rid of all of that. Yeah.
Just delete it. I told you to delete it.
That's awesome. So I think we're just about up with our time, but we do maybe have a few minutes for any news. Are either of you aware of any big news announcements, or are there any security breaches? That seems to be a weekly occurrence lately that we can discuss.
Disney World, so I don't really know what happened. I was kind of checked out, so it would be used to do anything from last week even.
I'm just trying to think here. I had a bacteria infection in my eye.
I think it counts.
So this is all about the personal news this week. So we have Disney World, eye infection.
That's what wear glasses.
I tried contacts tonight and I scratched my eye. So
yeah, we're having lots of eye problems this week.
I don't have any.
I'm going through my Twitter stream, and I'm just trying to see what what the deal is, and I'm like, there was a bad patch on Tuesday.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It caused.
In fact, we're not going to deploy it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I sent out a nasty gram about that one too.
Yeah, it's causing Outlook crashes
under penalty of death.
Is it an Office patch or is it a Windows patch?
Let me grab
an Exchange patch.
Article. I don't remember the article by heart.
MS something 115.
Something.
115.
These kinds of things that make me glad I'm a blogger.
I've that whole so somebody asked me that if I would actually quit my job and just do like analyst blogging type full time, and I'm not sure that I would. I like having a day job. I like going into an office some days, and actually implementing technology that we talk about.
Mm-hmm. I miss that. I mean, it's been.
You want to come work for me? I'm a really nice boss. I swear I am. I'm not that mean.
Yeah, I don't really know how to do Exchange anymore.
You don't have to do Exchange. You know anything about video?
No.
No.
I can barely figure out this Hangout thing, let alone
Skype. Spam.
No, it's basically desktop.
Type. I need a secretary. I'm sorry, an administrative assistant.
I'm not quitting this job. This is pretty choice.
I need somebody to carry my shoes between the train station and the building. It's a mile walk.
Man, no, it's not going to happen. My last Exchange job was a company was getting sued, and so I had to stand up and restore backups from Exchange 4, 5, and 5.5.
Oh my God! I've done this.
Oh my God! That's like wanting to poke your eye out.
It took an entire weekend of just nothing but like pizza and beer and servers and tapes, and it was the worst. I swore off Exchange from then on. Yeah,
I've done weekends like that. Actually, months, and I lived off beef jerky. Yeah, I'm a beef jerky fanatic, and I must have had bags and bags of beef jerky just to get through the restore. I'm like, I need more.
Oh, it was so terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. I once spent a whole weekend running ESE util against a customer's databases because their backups failed and their Exchange server failed. Like their backups were failing for like a month and they didn't know it.
I probably would have just hung myself at that point.
Yeah, I remember missing a Packer game and I was like, oh, I'm working. I'm running boring utilities and there's a Packer game going on.
Nowadays you can do that and be at the Packers game.
Now you can, I know.
Yeah. I've done Exchange migrations at a soccer game before.
Yeah.
On my iPhone.
Totally.
We use App Refactoring to transform ESE util so that you could run it from your mobile phone.
But why would you actually run that anymore? Seriously, if you have a DAG, you really don't need. I haven't run that in years. Like
no, that's how long ago this was. That's so long ago.
I mean, and you know what? I think it was even last year somebody asked me if you should run it.
1996 or 7.
Yeah.
When I did that. Yeah.
I think I had to ask me if they should run that regularly. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It's 2014, dude.
Is that that's the same guy that runs defrag in his like autoexec.bat file?
Right. Right.
They wanted to train the help desk to run this. I'm like,
oh my God.
No, nobody wants to run that anymore.
Maybe that guy might be trying to still configure jumpers on the system board too.
Probably.
Little switches.
Dude, we even Exchange admins cringe when we talk, when we think about doing that. Why would you want to train somebody in the help desk to do that? No.
I know. That's hilarious.
Good times. I think, good thing they listened to me.
We could do an entire hour just on these old-timey war stories.
I know. Who needs the news?
Exactly. And I'm looking and I'm like, other than that,
nothing stands out.
I mean, I think this is like a new segment for you guys. Like, like right before the news, you should be like one war story from your past lives back in the 1900s.
There you go.
Oh God, the stuff that I've done. No regrets though. No regrets.
Oh no.
I own up to all my mistakes.
Yep.
No regrets. I do have to do a shameless self-promotion. I did a podcast last night recording for Paul Cunningham, Exchange Server Pro, and I was his first woman to be on his podcast. Yay!
Yay! Congratulations.
So he'll have that out soon, and we'll definitely promote that. And I was gonna say I'm on my way to Berlin. I think I'm already there. So we won't have a show next week, unless we do something special.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Something unplanned, we may.
Yeah. never
if you're hung up
know.
for something, I can. You can tune into the BrianMadden.com podcast next Tuesday. We'll have Michel Roth on, who used to work for Login Consultants and now is with RES Software, and he's just an old friend. So that's my shameless self-plug that I'm thinking about myself to give, even though I wasn't invited.
We are all about self-promotion.
Self-promotion.
Hey, I had to write my self-appraisal this week, okay?
So man, those are the worst.
When you have to, self-review. I
top
used to
performer.
Yeah, I used to really struggle with that, and I don't know. I've gotten better at it. I had a boss that, for a good 7 years, made us do it every year, so I gave in and figured it out. Sometimes
I think you should do it. Everybody should do it.
I think it's good. It's good self-reflection.
It is, but you should never do it in one day. You should always do it, little bits at a time, because if you do it in one day, you rush through it and you don't think through it thoroughly. But if you just tackle it, a little bit at a time, maybe over like a course of 2 weeks, you'll find that, one, that the self-reflection is really good, but you write better that way as well. Especially if you're doing reviews for other people too. I find that if I do a little bit at a time, I think I give better performance evaluations that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just little tidbits of information. See, I'm more than just shoes and beating people because they run out of space on their log drive for Exchange.
All right. Well, this has been a great show. We are definitely at time. So, Gabe, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for the invitation.
It was great. And
this was awesome. And I wanted to say I love your mic.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So, we do podcasts and stuff all the time, and voiceover recording, that kind of a thing. So it's kind of a more legit setup. But I was telling Theresa earlier, you get the studio arm that stops vibrations from messing up the recording, and all of a sudden everybody thinks it's like a pro rig, and really I think it costs like $80. So
yeah, we were comparing mics. I was thinking, wow, cool. I said, look at mine, and I said it's an Audio-Technica. He goes, yeah, we probably have the same mic. His just looks cooler.
Yeah, it's the same mic. What you got there? The 2020?
I don't know.
I'm making that up.
Yeah, it is. It's the 2020.
Oh, wow.
AT2020.
I'm going to go Madonna style someday. I just need to.
Bedazzled?
Yeah. I just need to get some money first. Yeah. I need to go work it a little bit,
So I need a little arm, a mounting arm for my mic, and a little wind block. And
I don't think you need a wind block, just because I haven't heard any pops or anything today. But that arm is great because it just clamps to your desk, and so then you don't have to worry about bumping the desk or bumping the mic or anything. It just kind of sits there.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm actually drinking a Merlot. I don't think I've ever drank a Merlot on the show before.
I think that's how you should open the show. Is like, all right, what are we drinking tonight?
I used to do that.
We used to, yeah.
I used to, and then it just was like, well, it's just wine. This is Josh Sellers Merlot, vintage 2012.
It just says wine on the bottle.
My wine. I actually have a friend who's a wine broker, and I've been trying to convince him to sponsor us. I said, "Trust me, I'll drink all your wines. You don't have to. You don't have to convince me they're good. I'll taste them all."
Funny.
All right. Well, we should probably close out the show.
We should
at this point.
Definitely we should.
So thanks again, Gabe.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to Current Status this evening. Have a great night.
See you guys later. Thank you. Bye.